Avery Callahan, 29, stared at her parents in disbelief as the words hung in the air like a death sentence. "Your sister deserves it all." 20 years of sacrificing my dreams, playing by their rules, and this was my reward, watching them hand everything to my sister on a silver platter. I never imagined that Sunday dinner would end with me discovering the family I thought I knew was built on a foundation of lies and favoritism that would force me to rewrite my entire existence. Hey everyone, I'm absolutely blown away by the support on my last video. Before I dive into how my world imploded at what should have been just another family dinner, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy family drama stories where karma eventually comes knocking. Trust me, you'll want to see how this one unfolds. Growing up in the picturesque suburb of Oak Ridge, Connecticut, I was the epitome of the perfect daughter. My parents, Richard and Elizabeth Callahan, had clear expectations, straight A's piano recitals, volunteering at the local hospital, and eventually following in my father's footsteps to become a doctor. I never questioned their path for me. It seemed reasonable that, as the eldest daughter, I would carry on the family legacy. My sister Paige, 2 years younger, was different from the start. While I had my father's studious nature and reserved personality, Paige was the spitting image of our mother, charismatic, effortlessly beautiful, and socially gifted. She could charm anyone with her quick wit and dazzling smile. Our parents claimed they loved us equally, but even as children, the difference in treatment was subtle yet persistent. When I won the state science fair in 8th grade, my parents nodded with approval. It was expected. When Paige got a B+ in algebra, the same year they took her out for ice cream to celebrate her improvement. When I was accepted to every Ivy League school, I applied to my father simply said, "Good, now don't mess it up." When Paige barely scraped into a state college, they threw her a lavish party complete with catered food and personalized decorations. I told myself it was because Paige needed more encouragement. I convinced myself that my parents were just responding to our different personalities. I was self-motivated, while Paige needed external validation. I buried any resentment deep inside and focused on making them proud, believing that someday all my hard work would be recognized. Throughout college and medical school, I continued to excel. I graduated summa cum laude from Yale and was accepted into one of the most prestigious medical programs in the country. Meanwhile, Paige dropped out of college after 2 years to find herself a journey that consisted mainly of expensive trips abroad funded by our parents. Each time she returned with some new passion, photography, pottery, fashion design, they would invest thousands in equipment classes and workspace, only for her to abandon it months later for the next fleeting interest. I didn't resent the financial support. My education had been fully funded as well. What stung was the emotional investment. While my achievements were met with stoic nods, Paige's smallest efforts were celebrated as if she'd discovered the cure for cancer. Family conversations revolved around her latest adventures, while my grueling 36-hour hospital shifts were barely acknowledged. Still, I persisted. I became a skilled cardiothoracic surgeon just as my father had dreamed. I bought a modest condo near the hospital, paid off my car, and started building a reputation in my field. I dated occasionally, but never seriously. My work consumed most of my time, and I was determined to make partner at my practice before focusing on my personal life. Paige, meanwhile, had cycled through 3 serious relationships and was currently engaged to Tyler, a successful real estate developer she'd met at a charity gala our parents had sponsored. The engagement had been a whirlwind. They'd known each other only 4 months when he proposed with a ring that cost more than my annual salary. Our parents were ecstatic, immediately offering to pay for a wedding that would rival royalty. I tried to be happy for her. I really did. I helped her choose invitation designs, listened to her debate between bands and DJs, and offered my condo for her bachelorette weekend when her first choice fell through. I even agreed to be her maid of honor, despite the fact that we'd grown increasingly distant over the years. Then came the Sunday dinner that changed everything. It was meant to be a regular family gathering. We tried to get together at least once a month, though my schedule often made it difficult. This particular Sunday, I'd swapped shifts with a colleague to ensure I could attend, knowing Paige wanted to discuss some wedding details. I arrived exactly on time, bringing a bottle of my father's favorite wine and a bouquet of lilies for my mother. The house looked exactly as it always had, immaculate and tastefully decorated, a testament to my mother's eye for design. Family photos lined the hallway, charting our growth from pigtailed children to adults. I noticed not for the first time that Paige's smiling face dominated the display. The smell of my mother's famous pot roast filled the air, and for a moment, I felt a pang of nostalgia. Despite everything, this was still home. These people were still my family, and part of me still desperately craved their approval. Little did I know that by dessert, that family would be shattered beyond repair, and I would walk out of that house with my entire understanding of my life completely dismantled. The tension started building the moment I walked through the door. Paige and Tyler had already arrived, champagne glasses in hand, looking like they'd stepped out of a magazine spread. My sister's diamond engagement ring caught the light, sending prisms dancing across the ceiling. "Avery, finally!" Paige exclaimed, air-kissing both my cheeks. "We were just talking about the wedding venue. Mom and Dad found this amazing chateau in Provence. It's absolutely perfect." "Provence," I echoed, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I thought you were getting married at the country club." My father cleared his throat. "We decided Paige deserves something more special. After all, it's not every day our little girl gets married." I nodded, swallowing the reminder that I was also their child, though clearly not their little girl in the same way. My mother ushered us to the dining room where the table was set with her best china and crystal glassware. Dinner proceeded with the usual pattern. Paige dominated the conversation with tales of wedding planning and honeymoon options, while my parents hung on her every word. When I mentioned a challenging surgery I'd performed earlier that week, successfully saving a 1-2-year-old boy with a congenital heart defect, my father nodded distractedly before turning back to Paige's debate between orchids and roses for her bridal bouquet. After the main course, as my mother served her famous chocolate mousse, Tyler clinked his glass for attention. "Richard Elizabeth, I want to thank you again for your generosity. The chateau is beyond our wildest dreams, and Paige deserves nothing less." My father beamed. "We've always wanted the best for our girls." That's when Paige dropped the bomb. "And thank you so much for the house, Tyler, and I can't wait to move in after the honeymoon. It's absolutely perfect." I nearly choked on my dessert. "House? What house?" My mother reached over to pat Paige's hand. "We decided to give them your grandparents' lake house as a wedding gift. It needs some updating, but the location is unbeatable." The lake house. The beautiful, sprawling property on Lake Winnipesaukee that had been in our family for generations. The place where I'd spent every summer growing up, where I'd learned to swim and sail, where I'd always imagined I would someday take my own children. The property that my grandmother had specifically mentioned should go to me in her will because I was the only one who'd shown interest in preserving its history. But Grandma wanted me to have the lake house, I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. She told me so before she died. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. My parents exchanged glances. "That was just talk," my father finally said. "Nothing was ever put in writing. Legally, the house came to us, and we can do with it what we think is best. And you think giving it to Paige is best." I couldn't keep the hurt from my voice. "Avery," my mother said soothingly, "you have your career. You're so busy at the hospital. When would you even use it? Paige and Tyler want to start a family right away. They'll need the space." Besides, Paige added not unkindly, but with that slight condescension that had become her trademark, "You've never been that interested in entertaining or decorating. The place needs someone with vision to restore it properly." I sat there, stunned into silence. 20 years of memories flashed through my mind, helping Grandpa repair the dock, repainting the shutters, with Grandma cataloging her collection of antique fishing lures that she promised would be mine someday. All of it casually handed over to my sister because she needed it more or deserved something special. "There's something else," my father said, refilling his wine glass. "Your mother and I have been talking about our estate planning." I braced myself, knowing whatever was coming would only twist the knife deeper. "We've decided to adjust our will. The majority of our assets will go to Paige and Tyler with provisions for any children they might have. Avery, you'll receive a smaller portion, but as your mother said, you have your career. You've always been the independent one, the successful one. Paige needs our support more." In that moment, something inside me broke. Years of tamped-down resentment bubbled to the surface. "So, that's how it is I spend my entire life following your rules, exceeding your expectations, making you proud, and my reward is watching you give everything to Paige because she's, what more needy, less capable of taking care of herself. That's not fair, Avery," my mother protested. "We've always supported you too. Financially for my education, yes. But emotionally, when was the last time either of you actually celebrated something I accomplished? When was the last time you put me first just once?" My father's expression hardened. "This isn't like you, Avery. You've never been one for theatrics. That's always been more Paige's style. I finished for him." "Yes, I know. Paige is the emotional one, the fun one, the one who needs taking care of. And I'm the responsible one, the one who can handle disappointment, the one who doesn't need attention or validation. Well, guess what? I'm human too. I have feelings too." "Of course you do, honey," my mother soothed, "but you've always been so self-sufficient. Paige is different." "Your sister deserves it," my father stated firmly. "She hasn't had the same advantages you have. She wasn't born with your brain or your drive. We're just evening the playing field." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. "Your sister deserves it. Not you both deserve good things or we love you equally." Just the stark, unvarnished truth I'd always suspected but never wanted to believe in my parents' eyes. I deserved less because I'd achieved more. I stood up, my napkin falling to the floor. "I need some air." As I stepped onto the back porch, I could hear them continuing the conversation inside, already moving on to discussing renovation plans for the lake house. My lake house, the one place that had always felt truly mine, now being given away, without a second thought. In that moment, standing alone under the stars, my grandfather had taught me to name, I made a decision that would change all of our lives forever. They thought they knew me, predictable, reliable Avery, who would swallow this injustice like all the others and show up at the next family dinner with a polite smile. But they had no idea what I was capable of when pushed too far. I returned to the dining room with a calm that surprised even me. My mother was serving coffee, the conversation, having moved on to which designer Paige should consider for the lake house renovations. "So Tyler," I said, taking my seat and sipping my coffee as if nothing had happened, "how's the real estate business these days?" Tyler launched into his standard spiel about market trends and investment opportunities. I nodded at appropriate intervals while my mind raced. 29 years of being the good daughter, the perfect child, and what did I have to show for it? A condo I barely saw because I was always working a career, my parents considered a given rather than an achievement, and the knowledge that no matter what I did, it would never be enough to earn the love and recognition they lavished on Paige. Actually, I interrupted Tyler mid-sentence about property values. "I have an announcement too." 4 pairs of eyes turned to me with varying degrees of interest. I've been offered a position with Doctors Without Borders. They need cardiothoracic surgeons in their Sudan program. This at least got my father's attention. "Sudan? That's absurd. You have a partnership track at one of the best practices in the country. It's something I've always wanted to do, I said, which wasn't exactly a lie. I had considered volunteer work, though never seriously enough to abandon my career. But suddenly the idea of getting as far away as possible from my family seemed not just appealing but necessary. But your career, my father began. My career will still be there. I cut him off. Or maybe it won't. Maybe I'll find something more meaningful than chasing partnerships and pleasing you. My mother looked genuinely distressed. Avery, you're upset about the lake house. We understand. But making rash decisions. This isn't about the lake house, I said, though we all knew it was at least partially. It's about finally doing something for myself instead of trying to earn approval I'm never going to get. Paige reached across the table to touch my hand. Ave, don't be dramatic. No one's asking you to earn our approval. We're all so proud of you. Her condescension was the final straw. Are you, Paige? Are you proud of me? Or are you just comfortable with the dynamic where you get everything handed to you while I work myself to exhaustion, trying to be worthy of the same love you receive unconditionally? Tyler shifted. Uncomfortably. I think I'll give you all some family time, he said, standing. I'll wait in the car, babe. After he left, my father fixed me with the stern look that had kept me in line my entire childhood. That's enough, Avery. You're embarrassing yourself. We've always treated you and Paige exactly the same. I laughed, a hollow sound that seemed to echo in the suddenly silent room. Dad, that's the biggest lie you've ever told, and we all know it. But you know what? It doesn't matter anymore. You've made your choice clear. Paige is your priority, your little girl. I'm just the reliable workhorse who doesn't need the emotional support or recognition. That's not true, my mother protested, tears forming in her eyes. We love you both the same. Love should be unconditional, I said, rising from my chair. But your love comes with expectations, at least for me. Paige gets love no matter what she does or doesn't do. I get love when I meet your standards, follow your plan, become the person you want me to be. We've never withheld love from you, my father insisted. Haven't you? What would you call it when my greatest achievements are met with a nod, while Paige's smallest efforts get standing ovations? What would you call it when you give her my grandmother's house because she deserves something special? What exactly have I done to deserve less? Silence fell over the table. For once, no one rushed to reassure Paige or change the subject. I've spent my whole life trying to make you proud. I continued, my voice steadier now. Do you know why I became a surgeon? Not because I was passionate about medicine, but because Dad expected it. Do you know why I never pursued art despite winning competitions in high school? Because it wasn't practical enough for the Callahan family standards. Unless you're Paige, of course, in which case you get a fully equipped studio to explore your creative side. You never said you wanted to pursue art, my mother said weakly. I shouldn't have had to say it. I exploded. You should have known me well enough to see it. You should have cared enough to notice what made me happy, not just what made you proud. I grabbed my purse and jacket, suddenly desperate to be anywhere but there. Where are you going? My father demanded. Away from here? Away from all of you. I need space to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to earn your approval. You're overreacting, he said dismissively. Call us when you've calmed down. His patronizing tone was the final confirmation I needed. I would never be an equal in this family, never be seen as an adult with valid feelings. I would always be the daughter who was expected to be reasonable to accommodate to understand why Paige needed more. Goodbye, I said simply, and walked out the front door. As I got into my car, I could see Paige through the window, my parents on either side of her, their arms around her shoulders as if she were the one who had been hurt. Even in this moment, they were comforting her instead of coming after me. I started the engine and pulled away from the house. I'd grown up in tears, blurring my vision. But beneath the pain was something unexpected, a sense of liberation. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to swallow my feelings to keep the peace. I wasn't going to pretend their treatment of me was fair or acceptable. It was time for Avery Callahan to stop being the perfect daughter and start being true to herself, whatever that might mean. I know you're probably wondering what I did next, and trust me, even I couldn't have predicted the turn my life was about to take. But before I continue this family drama roller coaster, let me take a quick second to thank you for sticking with me so far. If you're enjoying this story of family betrayal and self-discovery, please hit that like button to let me know, and subscribe if you haven't already for more real-life drama stories. The next part of this journey is where things get really interesting, and you won't want to miss what happens when I finally stopped being the perfect daughter and started standing up for myself. 3 days after the disastrous family dinner, I was in my office at the hospital, mechanically going through patient files, while my mind replayed the confrontation on an endless loop. My phone had been buzzing with messages from my mother, alternating between guilt trips and pleas for reconciliation, but I hadn't responded to any of them. My father hadn't contacted me at all, which spoke volumes. A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. "Dr. Callahan, there's someone here to see you," says he's family. I expected to see my father's stern face, or perhaps Paige's apologetic one. Instead, Tyler stood in my doorway looking uncharacteristically serious. "Tyler, what are you doing here?" He closed the door behind him. "I need to talk to you. It's important." I gestured to the chair across from my desk, professional courtesy overriding my personal feelings. "I have surgery in an hour, so make it quick." He sat down fidgeting with his watch, a nervous habit I'd noticed before. "First, I want to say I'm sorry about Sunday. The way your parents treated you, it wasn't right." His sympathy surprised me. Tyler had always seemed like an extension of Paige, charming, somewhat superficial, and completely aligned with her interests. "Thanks, but I don't need pity. Especially not from the man who's about to move into my grandmother's house." He winced. "That's actually why I'm here. There's something you should know about the lake house. And about Paige." A knot formed in my stomach. "What about them? Paige has been lying to you to everyone. She's not planning to restore the lake house. She and your parents have already signed an agreement with my company to develop the property. We're going to tear it down and build luxury condos." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What? No, that's impossible. That house has been in our family for generations. My grandparents would be devastated." "I'm sorry, Avery. I tried to talk her out of it, suggested we could renovate instead, but she was adamant. The property is worth millions as a development project. She sees it as her big chance to be financially independent." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Tyler ran a hand through his hair. "Because it's wrong, and because I'm not sure I can go through with marrying her." This was getting more surreal by the minute. "Excuse me, the Paige I fell in love with, the one she shows to the world, is sweet and caring and somewhat naive. But lately, I've seen another side of her. The way she manipulates people, especially your parents, the way she talks about you when you're not around." My curiosity overrode my shock. "What does she say about me?" "She resents you. Your success, your independence. She tells your parents that you look down on them, that you think you're better than the family. It's why they're so defensive around you, so quick to take her side." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. While I had been working myself to exhaustion, trying to make my parents proud, Paige had been poisoning them against me. Why would she do that? Tyler looked genuinely pained. "I think she's jealous. You built your success yourself. She needs your parents' constant support and validation. If they started recognizing your achievements equally, what would that leave for her?" I sat back in my chair processing this information. "So what now? Why come to me with this because I found something else?" Tyler said, pulling out his phone. I was looking through some of the lake house documentation, preparing for the development project, when I came across some papers in your parents' home office. He pulled up a photo on his phone and handed it to me. It was my grandmother's handwriting, unmistakable with its elegant loops and precise angles. A legal document dated just months before her death. "This is a codicil to her will," I said, scanning the document. "She explicitly left the lake house to me." "Your parents knew about it," Tyler confirmed. "There's a letter with it, addressing them directly, explaining her wishes. They chose to ignore it." Anger burned through my shock. "That's illegal. They've deliberately concealed a legal document to override my grandmother's wishes." "Yes," Tyler said simply. "I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure that's fraud." I handed his phone back, my mind racing. "Why show me this? You're engaged to Paige. Your company stands to make millions from this development." Tyler looked me directly in the eye. "Because unlike your family, I still believe in doing the right thing, and because I can't build a life with someone who would treat her own sister this way." I thought Paige was just spoiled, a little self-centered. I didn't realize how calculating she could be. For the first time in our acquaintance, I felt a genuine connection with Tyler. He wasn't just Paige's fiancé, he was a person with his own moral compass, one that was currently pointing him away from my sister. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "I haven't decided yet, but I wanted you to know the truth. You deserve that much." He stood up, straightening his jacket. "What about you? Will you confront them?" I thought about it, about the years of favoritism, the lies, the deliberate undermining of my relationship with my parents, about my grandmother's wishes being disregarded so casually. "No," I said finally. "Not yet. I need to be smarter than that. They've had the upper hand my whole life because they controlled the narrative. It's time for me to take back control." Tyler nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I can help. Whatever you decide to do, I have access to documents, emails between Paige and the development company, evidence." I considered his offer. Could I trust him, or was this some elaborate trap set by Paige to make me look even worse to my parents? But something in Tyler's expression, regret, determination, a hint of the same betrayal I felt convinced me. "Thank you," I said. "I might take you up on that." After Tyler left, I sat at my desk staring at the wall, but seeing nothing. My whole life I'd believed in playing by the rules, being honest, working hard, trusting that fairness would prevail. Now I was faced with the knowledge that my own family had been breaking those rules all along, manipulating and deceiving to maintain the dynamic that suited them. The perfect daughter routine hadn't worked. Perhaps it was time for a new approach, one that would finally bring the truth to light and give me what I deserved, not just what my family decided I should have. As I prepared for surgery, my mind was clearer than it had been in years. I knew exactly what I needed to do, and for once making my parents proud was the furthest thing from my mind. The next week passed in a blur of planning and discovery. Tyler proved to be an invaluable ally, providing me with copies of emails between Paige and the development company dating back over 8 months. It was clear she had been planning this long before her engagement, using Tyler's company as a means to an end. I also hired a lawyer, Meredith Chen, who specialized in estate disputes. She confirmed what I already suspected: the codicil to my grandmother's will was legally binding and my parents had committed fraud by concealing it. "We have a strong case," Meredith assured me during our second meeting. "With the evidence you've provided, we could not only secure the lake house, but potentially sue for damages. However, are you sure you want to take such drastic action against your family?" It was a fair question, one I had been wrestling with since Tyler's revelation. Part of me, the part that still desperately wanted my parents' approval, hesitated at the thought of a public legal battle that would expose our family's dirty laundry. But another part, the part that had been silently screaming for recognition for 29 years, wanted justice not just for me, but for my grandmother, whose final wishes had been so callously ignored. I want what's rightfully mine, I told Meredith, but I also want them to acknowledge what they've done. A quiet settlement won't accomplish that. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. Then we should proceed with the lawsuit. However, I suggest one preliminary step. Sometimes, presenting the evidence directly to the opposing party can result in a more favorable resolution without court involvement. You mean, confront them with what I know, exactly. Give them a chance to do the right thing before we escalate. I considered this. The thought of facing my parents and Paige armed with the truth both terrified and exhilarated me. It would be the first time in my life I'd approach them from a position of power rather than supplication. I'll think about it, I promised Meredith. Later that evening, as I was reviewing patient files in my condo, my phone rang with Paige's number. I hesitated before answering, curious what story she'd concocted to explain her fiancé's sudden interest in meeting with me. Avery, thank God you picked up. Paige's voice was thick with tears. Have you heard from Tyler? So, he hadn't told her about our meeting. Interesting. No, why would I? He's gone, she sobbed. Left a note saying he needs time to think, that he's not sure about the wedding anymore. He's not answering his phone or emails. I'm frantic. I felt a twinge of satisfaction quickly followed by guilt. Despite everything, she was still my sister and her pain wasn't entirely gratifying. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, keeping my tone neutral. But I'm not sure why you're calling me. We're not exactly on speaking terms right now. I know, and I'm sorry about the dinner. Mom and Dad were horrible to you. But I need my big sister right now. Please, can you come over? I can't be alone. The old Avery would have dropped everything to rush to Paige's side, putting her own feelings aside to be the supportive sister. But I wasn't that person anymore. I have an early surgery tomorrow, I said. I can't drop everything because Tyler finally saw through your act. My act? Paige's voice shifted from pleading to indignant. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know about the development plans for the lake house, Paige. I know you've been lying to everyone about your intentions. Silence on the other end, then, Tyler told you. It wasn't a question. Yes, he did. Along with some other interesting information about how you've been poisoning Mom and Dad against me for years. That's not true, she protested, but her voice lacked conviction. I mean, I might have vented to them sometimes, but that's normal sibling stuff. Normal sibling stuff, I repeated. Is that what you call deliberately sabotaging my relationship with our parents so you could maintain your position as the favorite? That's not save it, Paige. I've spent my whole life making excuses for you and them. I'm done. I could hear her breathing on the other end, calculating her next move. Paige had always been skilled at manipulating situations to her advantage, but for once, she didn't hold all the cards. What are you going to do? She finally asked. I'm going to take back what's rightfully mine, I said, starting with Grandma's house. You can't prove it was meant for you, she said quickly. It was just something she mentioned casually. Actually, I can prove it. There's a codicil to her will that specifically leaves the lake house to me, a document that Mom and Dad have been hiding for years. Another long silence. You're bluffing. Am I? I guess we'll find out when my lawyer presents the evidence in court. Lawyer Paige's voice rose in panic. Avery, you can't be serious. We're family. Family doesn't steal from each other, Paige. Family doesn't lie and manipulate to get what they want at someone else's expense. Please, she begged. Can't we talk about this? I'm sure we can work something out without getting lawyers involved. I considered Meredith's advice about giving them a chance to make things right. Fine. Sunday dinner your place. Invite Mom and Dad. We'll lay everything out on the table and they can decide how they want to proceed. Sunday, Paige agreed quickly. Thank you, Avenue. I know we can fix this. We've always been so close. Her revisionist history almost made me laugh. We hadn't been close since childhood, and even then our relationship had been defined by competition rather than genuine sisterly affection. After ending the call, I texted Tyler, "Paige knows you told me. Sunday dinner at her place to discuss. You might want to stay scarce until then." His reply came moments later, already 3 states away. "Good luck. You deserve better than all of them." His support warmed me in a way I hadn't expected. For so long, I'd been the outsider in my own family, the one who didn't quite fit the mold they'd created for me. Now, ironically, it was Paige's fiancé who saw my worth more clearly than my own blood relatives. The rest of the week passed in a flurry of preparation. Meredith helped me organize the evidence into a clear, irrefutable presentation. I took 2 personal days from the hospital, the first non-medical leave I'd requested in 3 years, to focus entirely on the confrontation ahead. By Sunday afternoon, as I drove to Paige's downtown apartment, I felt oddly calm. The anxiety that had been my constant companion in family situations had been replaced by a steely determination. I wasn't walking into this dinner as the perpetually disappointing daughter or the overlooked sister. I was walking in as Avery Callahan, M.D., a woman who knew her worth and was prepared to fight for what was rightfully hers. As I parked outside Paige's building, I spotted my parents' car already there. They had arrived early, no doubt, to coordinate their approach with Paige. That was fine. Let them strategize. They were operating with an incomplete set of facts while I held all the cards. For the first time in my life, I was about to enter a family gathering, not seeking approval but demanding justice. The thought brought a smile to my face as I grabbed the folder of evidence from my passenger seat and headed inside. Paige's apartment door was slightly ajar when I arrived, voices drifting into the hallway. I paused, listening to my family discuss me as if I were a problem to be managed rather than a person with legitimate grievances. "She's always been so sensitive," my mother was saying. "We just need to reassure her that we love her just as much as Paige." My father's voice cut in, "But we have to be firm about the lake house. It's already in motion, and frankly, Avery wouldn't appreciate its value the way Paige and Tyler's development will. It's a business decision, nothing personal." "She mentioned a codicil to Mom's will," Paige said, her voice tight with worry. "Do you think she really has something, or is she bluffing?" A pause, then my father spoke again, his tone dismissive. "There was a note your grandmother left mentioning she wanted Avery to have the house, but it wasn't properly executed. Legally, it doesn't hold water. Besides, we've been paying the taxes and maintenance all these years. The property is ours to do with, as we see fit." I'd heard enough. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, startling the 3 of them huddled around Paige's kitchen island. "Actually, Dad, that's not how inheritance law works," I said calmly. And Grandma's codicil was properly executed, witnessed by her lawyer and notarized. But I'm getting ahead of myself. "Hello, everyone." They stared at me as if I'd sprouted a second head. I was usually the one who rushed to smooth over awkward situations, who apologized for conflicts I hadn't created. This new assertive Avery clearly threw them off balance. "Avery, my mother recovered first, moving to embrace me. We're so glad you came. We've been so worried." I stepped back, avoiding her hug. "Let's skip the pretense, shall we? We're here to discuss the lake house and the fact that you've been hiding Grandma's final wishes from me for years." My father straightened, adopting the authoritative stance that had intimidated me throughout childhood. "Now, Avery, that's not a constructive way to begin this conversation." "I disagree," I countered, setting my folder on the counter. "I think starting with the truth is exactly what this family needs." Paige glanced nervously between us. "Let's all sit down." "I've made dinner." "I'm not here for dinner," I said. "I'm here to give you all a chance to do the right thing before my lawyer files a civil suit tomorrow morning." That got their attention. My mother's face paled, and my father's confident demeanor flickered momentarily. "Lawyer Avery, this is family business," he began. "Yes, and families should be honest with each other. Families shouldn't commit fraud." I opened my folder and pulled out the copy of the codicil Tyler had photographed. This is a legally binding amendment to Grandma's will, specifically leaving the lake house to me. You've had this document for 5 years and deliberately concealed it. My mother reached for it with trembling hands. Where did you get this? That's not important, I replied. What matters is that it exists and you knew about it. My father tried a different approach. Avery, you have to understand. The upkeep on that property is enormous. The property taxes alone, I can afford the taxes, Dad. I'm a successful surgeon, remember? Or have you been too busy celebrating Paige's latest whim to notice Paige flinched? That's not fair. What's not fair is you planning to demolish our grandparents' home to build condos. I shot back. That house has been in our family for generations. It's part of our heritage. It's just a house, Paige argued. The development project would create jobs, housing. It's not just a house to me, I interrupted. It's every summer of my childhood. It's where Grandpa taught me to fish, and Grandma showed me how to bake her famous blueberry pie. It's my connection to them, and Grandma wanted me to have it because she knew I would preserve it, not turn it into a profit center. My mother attempted to placate me. Darling, we understand you're upset, but you have to look at the bigger picture. Paige and Tyler's project would be beneficial for the whole community. I laughed a short, bitter sound. The bigger picture? Let's talk about the bigger picture. For 29 years, you've favored Paige in every possible way. You've dismissed my achievements, ignored my needs, and systematically ensured that she received the lion's share of your emotional investment. That's ridiculous, my father protested. We've always been proud of you. Proud maybe, but never actually present. Never genuinely interested. My accomplishments were expected, Paige's were celebrated. My struggles were my problem to solve. Hers were family crises that required all hands on deck. I pulled out another document from my folder, a timeline I'd created of significant events in our lives, and my parents' responses to each. My graduation from medical school you left early because Paige had a gallery opening for her photography phase. My first solo surgery, you couldn't attend the dinner celebration because Paige needed help moving into her new apartment. My award from the American College of Surgeons, you sent a text message. Paige's engagement to Tyler, you threw a party for 200 people. My mother had tears in her eyes now. We didn't realize. We thought you understood how busy things were. Things were busy because you made Paige's life your priority, I said, my voice steady. And it wasn't just about being busy. According to Tyler, Paige has been actively working to undermine me with you for years. Paige's head snapped up. Tyler said that he's lying. He's just angry because She stopped abruptly. Because you what, Paige? I pressed. She looked away. Nothing. It doesn't matter. But my father was looking at her with sudden suspicion. Paige, what is Tyler angry about? She squirmed under his gaze. He might have found out that I think that the development deal was in place before we got engaged. That I may have initially pursued him because of his position in the company. My mother gasped. You used him. For once, Paige was the one being scrutinized, and she clearly didn't enjoy the experience. It wasn't like that. I did fall in love with him eventually. It just started as a business strategy. I shook my head, almost pitying her. And you wonder why he left. My father was still processing this revelation. So, the whole engagement was a scheme to facilitate this development deal, not the whole engagement, Paige insisted. But yes, initially I saw an opportunity and I took it. That's what you taught us, Dad, to seize opportunities. Not at the expense of honesty and integrity, he shot back, and I nearly laughed at the hypocrisy. Where was this concern for honesty when they were hiding my grandmother's will from me? Let's get back to the matter at hand, I said, refocusing the conversation. The lake house legally belongs to me, and I want it. Not to develop, but to preserve as Grandma intended. My father's jaw tightened. The development contracts are already signed. There would be significant penalties for backing out now. That's not my problem, I replied. You signed those contracts knowing you didn't have the legal right to do so. That's fraud, Dad. Do you really want that to become public knowledge? A respected cardiothoracic surgeon committing real estate fraud would make quite a headline. The color drained from his face. My mother looked from him to me, clearly torn. There must be some compromise we can reach, she pleaded. I'm willing to be reasonable, I conceded. I don't want to destroy this family despite how you've treated me. So here's my offer. The lake house reverts to me as Grandma intended. You contact the development company and explain the situation. I'll cover any reasonable penalties from my savings. And if we refuse, my father challenged, though his voice lacked its usual authority. I met his gaze steadily. Then, my lawyer files suit tomorrow morning. The evidence is irrefutable. You'll lose in court, pay significantly more in damages and legal fees, and your reputations will be irreparably damaged. Is that really the hill you want to die on? A heavy silence fell over the room. I could almost see the calculations happening behind my father's eyes, weighing the costs and benefits of fighting me versus accepting defeat. Finally, he spoke. You've changed Avery. Yes, I agreed. I'm no longer the daughter who will sacrifice her own happiness to maintain family harmony. I'm no longer willing to be treated as less than. To my surprise, there was a hint of respect in his eyes. I need time to consult with our lawyer to see what options we have regarding the development contract. It wasn't a complete capitulation, but it was more than I'd expected. You have until Wednesday. After that, we proceed with litigation. My mother reached for my hand. Please, Avery, stay for dinner. We need to talk this through as a family. I gently extracted my hand from hers. I'm not interested in another family dinner where my feelings and needs are secondary. I've said what I came to say. The ball is in your court now. As I gathered my documents and prepared to leave, Paige suddenly spoke up. I'm sorry. I turned to her, genuinely surprised. Not for the lake house, she clarified quickly. I still think the development project makes more sense. But I'm sorry for other things. For not being a better sister. For taking advantage of how Mom and Dad favor me. It wasn't a complete apology, but from Paige, even this partial acknowledgement was unprecedented. Thank you for saying that, I responded, unsure what else to add. As I walked to the door, my father called after me. Avery, wait. Are you really joining Doctors Without Borders? I paused, hand on the doorknob. No, Dad. That was just something I said in the heat of the moment. But I am reevaluating my priorities. For too long, my life has been about meeting your expectations. It's time I figured out what I want. With that, I left, closing the door behind me on 29 years of being the perfect daughter who was never quite perfect enough. 3 months after the confrontation at Paige's apartment, I stood on the dock of the lake house, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and crimson. The air was crisp with early autumn, carrying the scent of pine and wood smoke from a nearby campfire. So much had changed since that Sunday dinner. My father had indeed consulted their lawyer, who confirmed what I already knew: the codicil was legally binding, and they had no grounds to contest my ownership of the property. The development deal had been canceled with financial penalties that I covered as promised, despite my father's unexpected offer to split the cost. The lake house was mine now, just as my grandmother had intended. I'd spent weekends clearing out years of neglect, carefully preserving the original features while updating the plumbing and electrical systems. It was becoming a true sanctuary, a place where I could reconnect with my own needs and desires after decades of putting everyone else first. My phone buzzed with a text message. Tyler checking in as he often did these days. After ending his engagement to Paige, he'd relocated to Boston to open a new branch of his company, focusing on sustainable renovation rather than new development. We'd developed a friendship that surprised us both, two people who had orbited the chaos of the Callahan family and emerged with a clearer perspective. My relationship with my parents and Paige remained complicated. The confrontation had forced certain truths into the open that couldn't be ignored, but decades of established dynamics couldn't change overnight. My father had approached me with a stiff, formal apology that acknowledged the inequality in how they'd treated Paige and me, though he stopped short of admitting deliberate favoritism. My mother made more genuine efforts to reconnect, calling regularly and showing interest in my life beyond superficial questions about work. She'd even visited the lake house once, walking through the rooms, with tears in her eyes, sharing stories about my grandparents I'd never heard before. Paige and I maintained a polite distance. The revelation about her manipulations had created a rift that would take time to heal, if it ever did. She'd thrown herself into a new venture, event planning, and seemed to be finding some success without our parents' constant intervention. As for me, I'd made significant changes in my own life. I'd reduced my hours at the hospital, creating space for other interests. I'd joined a local art class, reclaiming the passion for painting I'd abandoned in high school. I'd even started dating again recently, meeting a wildlife photographer whose work brought him to the lake regularly. Most importantly, I'd stopped measuring my worth by my parents' approval. The perfect daughter was gone, replaced by a woman who understood her own value and refused to accept less than she deserved. A loon called across the water, its haunting cry echoing against the surrounding hills. I breathed deeply, feeling more at peace than I had in years. The path to this moment hadn't been easy, but standing here now, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice in fighting for what was rightfully mine. Not just the lake house, but my self-respect and independence. Sometimes family isn't what we're born into, but what we choose for ourselves. Sometimes the greatest act of love is setting boundaries that protect your own heart. And sometimes finding your own voice after years of silence is the most powerful revenge of all. I want to thank all of you for coming along on this journey with me. Looking back at everything that happened with my family, I've realized how many others might be going through similar struggles with favoritism or feeling undervalued by the people who should love them most. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against family injustice? What was your experience like? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you or gave you courage to reclaim your own power, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about family dynamics, personal growth, and finding your voice. Remember, sharing these experiences helps others feel less alone. So if you know someone who might benefit from this story, please share it with them. Until next time, this is Avery, reminding you that sometimes the family you choose is more valuable than the family you're born into.